Let's get into it. Now, I told you we have a lot of movies to talk about this week, so we're going to go ahead and get a jump start on one of these movies tonight. And let's start out by saying that usually when Hollywood says that something is based on a true story, that's kind of the equivalent of buying cheap fruit juice.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
I really wanted to get you a shirt from dtmerch.com.
Well, they were made in Japan.
Yeah, they were made. Slides right there.
Oh, yeah, sure. I can just scare you, eat around my house.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Skiff.
Easy on, easy off right there, man. Of course, we got that classic black tooth and white logo, and we have our wonderful Heather line of shirts, which come in many different flavors. Even seen some people posting photos of their phone covers. Oh, one thing about dtmerch.com, if you order anything over $50, if your order comes out over $50, free U.S. shipping on that. I mean, when they say based on a true story, they mean based loosely on that story right there.
Well, especially when they say inspired by a true story.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one where they like, all right, these characters actually existed in life.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything else we made up.
I see a trend. I've seen two movies that said, maybe this is a true story. Maybe not. I don't know. Look it up. Maybe we full of shit. I don't know. Just watch the movie and be entertained. You see these movies and you do your research and you're like, none of this shit happened. None of this is and if it did happen, it was grossly misinterpreted in the film for entertainment's sake. That's why it's actually great at this moment to see a movie be honest.
Yeah.
Where they say they lie.
Yeah.
There's a movie out there where they said, look, y'all know who this man is. Y'all know his story and everything. Wouldn't it be more interesting if we just made shit up? Wouldn't it be interesting if we just kind of told a fictionalized version of this person that you've seen? And we are talking about Mr. Rogers, because there's this movie out now, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is kind of about Mr. Rogers, but it's mostly about a journalist who wrote a story about Mr. Rogers.
Which did happen.
Now, that is the 10% right there. 10% is that there was a guy who did write a story about Mr. Rogers for Esquire. That guy is named, I believe, Tom Junod. And he wrote this famous article, Can You Say Hero, about Mr. Rogers. It was supposed to be a fluff piece until Mr. Rogers, it got all up in his mind.
It's supposed to be a fluff piece where this guy was like, man, I don't write fluff pieces. I'm going to get to the real truth about this asshole.
Yeah.
And then went like, oh, Mr. Rogers is awesome.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers went in there, because he went in there and tried to say, yeah, this guy, he went in there and asked Mr. Rogers, like, come on, man, what the is up? And Mr. Rogers like, yeah, what is up? In the movie, we have the guy played by Matthew Rhys. It's Matthew Rhys, who's a British actor, but he plays American journalist. They fictionalize some of the things here, including giving some of these people aliases. Tom Junod's alias in this is Lloyd Vogel, and he's one of those journalists who is so cynical, who doesn't like people so much, who's looking for the bad in people so much that people don't even want him writing about them.
Yeah, like, you ain't doing a hatchet job on me.
Nah, he's like, we came here to write a recipe book. And you call me an asshole.
And you asking about my VD.
Yeah. Until he meets his match with Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
The
power of Rogers.
The power of Mr. Rogers. He tries to pull that angry shit with Mr. Rogers. And Mr. Rogers is like, you know what? I live for assholes like you. I collect assholes like you. I'm going to make you love me before this is done. And hopefully you will love yourself by the time we're finished with our friendship. And that is what this pretty much is. Mr. Rogers just finding another soul that needs his help. Let's go ahead and take a look at this trailer for Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
I think the best thing we can do is to let people know that each one of them is precious.
Man, when this starts out, okay, when you go in, and I wish I couldn't say anything at all. I wish I
Right.
could just tell you just to go away because, I mean, from the moment you walk in, it's catching you off guard. So you think you're going in to watch a Mr. Rogers biopic.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and when Tom Hanks first walks out, it's kind of like, all right. I mean, I guess that's an okay impression of Mr. Rogers. It's not knocking my socks off.
No, but when you go in, you're expecting to see the Mr. Rogers story.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it starts out, as you continue to watch, it slowly turns into the weirdest, longest episode of Mr. Rogers you've ever seen.
That's true.
Because it starts out like an episode
Like an
of Mr.
like an
Rogers.
actual episode,
He
yeah.
comes in, putting on the red sweater, flipping his shoes around, catching his shoes, and then he has it. Now, if you're looking right here, he has like these doors on this piece of paper right here, and he's telling you that these are the things I like today, and these are the people I know. And here's one guy, my friend, Lloyd Vogel, and he's like, Lloyd's having a little bit of trouble, and Lloyd looks f***ed up in the picture too.
And confused.
He's confused. Yeah.
How'd I get here?
Yeah. It really is.
No, it really does look like that.
It really does. That's a nice picture. I mean, even that picture right there, he looks messed up, but Lloyd looks up.
Like he's trapped in the board.
Like he's trapped in the Phantom Zone. Or something.
Put his ass in the Phantom Zone. No, Mr. Rogers has me captured. Help me.
Stop laughing.
We're gonna close the door now.
But then he tells you, like, this is my friend, and my friend is having a little bit of trouble. And then it plays out, the movie plays out like an episode of Mr. Rogers. Whenever they go to, like, when Lloyd is going to the city or they're doing a transition to another shot, like if Lloyd is traveling, you'll see it'll crossfade into like a little cardboard car that looks like a kid has drawn.
Yeah, like the cardboard cities in Mr.
That they used
Rogers.
to
Yeah,
do.
and
Yeah,
then
they
it
do.
goes
Oh,
to
that's
a cardboard,
Yeah.
like a cardboard cartoonish looking city, and they're playing that, and like with Trolley and everything, they're playing that Mr. Rogers jazz,
Yeah.
and it's just like, okay, I'm watching a weird,
No, it's cool. I mean,
Yeah, it's
cool. It's very cool.
It's
I'm
cute. It's
watching
cute.
a fucking weird episode of Mr. Rogers right now.
I'm just laughing about the little cargo.
Yeah, it's a little car. You can see the stick on it and everything.
It's fun.
I
No,
know
it
it
is.
is, but he said you can see the stick.
You can see, you can see it's kind of wiggling around and shit, but and they do that through the whole thing,
Okay.
and they don't play it up. It's just like, hey, this is the approach we're taking with this movie.
That's interesting.
And yeah, it is very interesting, and they play it up like an actual episode. When Mr. Rogers actually played by Tom Hanks, when he comes on the screen, it's like an episode of Mr. Rogers, except Tom Hanks has kidnapped Mr. Rogers and got him tied in a closet somewhere, and he's just taking over the show.
Well,
Yeah,
can't go in here.
It's like King of Comedy.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
He's studied it so much and now he's got it tied up and he's taking over his show.
Yeah, it really is like he just chloroformed Mr. Rogers and got him in a basement somewhere. He just took over his show.
Took his eyebrows.
Yeah.
I'm going to take your place and no one will ever know the difference.
We quickly learn, though, once he transitions over into Lloyd's story, Mr. Rogers is a supporting character. Lloyd, it's his story from this point on. Even though you're dealing with dark subject matter, because Lloyd's story is very dark. There's a lot of dark and bad history going on with him that gets slowly revealed throughout the movie. But they continue to play out the theme of the children's show format, which I thought was, I actually thought that was really cool, because when they do that, under less experienced hands or under less talented people, they would really play that up. Hey, isn't this cool? And that is just, it's just the format that you just accept as part of what we're watching.
Much like the Mr. Rogers show, the whole movie is very understated.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's clever when it needs to be. And Tom Hanks, had it been a biopic, which was, I couldn't have been more happy that that's not what it was.
Same here, man.
Because he would have been completely under scrutiny the whole time. You'd be watching it, trying to compare his performance. Instead, that takes the focus away, and it doesn't take long before you realize, man, the way he went with this was the best way possible. Because I was like, it might not be a spot-on impression, but it totally captures the soul of Mr. Rogers to where I felt like I really bought into the fact that I was watching Mr. Rogers and not Tom Hanks.
He's definitely got the cadence of his voice down.
Well, you know what? You're right, because
where he at the last minute, he's always
it's
always
just
slow.
Everything
and
is about. I mean, he doesn't talk as slowly as Mr. Rogers does, but everything about this story, the movie, is what Mr. Rogers was all about.
Yeah, it's more about Mr. Rogers' just philosophical view on life and also his demeanor. Because that's what people are going to want to know. People are going to ask, does Tom Hanks transform into Mr. Rogers? Hell no. No, he don't transform into Mr. Rogers at all. And you know what? And if you really want to know the truth, it's like watching Tom Hanks, like he got high and started doing a Mr. Rogers impression. Or it just might be Tom Hanks is high and just talking this way, because Tom Hanks is known as being one of the nicest guys in the world. Right. So it's just kind of like, well, shit, he just kind of smoked out and now he's just extra nice. If you really want to know how to approach this, think about Eddie Murphy and My Name is Dolomite.
Dolomite is my name.
When you watch that, it's Eddie Murphy being Eddie Murphy playing a character, but you become endeared to the character that he's playing, and it's kind of the same way with Tom Hanks, man. In this movie, he's not he is Tom Hanks, but whatever other character he's turning into, that and more than probably Eddie Murphy, because Eddie Murphy just said, "F it, what you see is what you get."
Yeah, I'm still Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. Tom Hanks is at least trying to capture the mannerisms and the essence of Mr. Rogers, and like you say, the cadence of Mr. Rogers. And like I said, he captures Mr. Rogers where he's talking, because he does capture that slow rhythm to the point where it's even kind of weird, because he's talking to people and he's just talking real slow like this, and he's like, "How does that make you feel?" And people are like, "It's making me feel really weird right now." Are you trying to have sex with me or something? I will if you want. Yeah. Hey, man.
I asked if he wanted to be my neighbor.
Won't you be my neighbor? But like I said, it helps that Tom Hanks does have the image of being one of the nicest guys in Hollywood, but and has the mannerisms down. But the other thing is that when I say Tom Hanks is not really trying to do Mr. Rogers, because they both have distinct voices. Yeah. Mr. Rogers, if you listen to Mr. Rogers, I mean, he couldn't have a more different voice than Tom Hanks. Mr. Rogers' voice was almost nasally and also almost very feminine. Yeah. To give you an example of that, I got video here of him doing that testimony for the subcommittee on communications, where he pretty much saved PBS, not just his show. He saved PBS. The
entire network.
The entire network. He saved PBS with a song that he sang to a grown man in the middle of these hearings right here.
What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong. And nothing you do seems very right.
Mr. Rogers freestyling, dropping bars, boy.
and the guy's like, Mr. Corleone, we're asking about your criminal activity. Look at him.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers, he's dropping them bars right there. Yeah, man. But if you listen to Tom Hanks, he keeps his deep, kind of gravelly voice.
Yeah, he never gets quite to that effeminate level.
No, not at all.
He probably realized I could get annoying in an hour and a half or 2 hour movie.
I mean, the thing is, like I said, it's not a spot-on impression, but he clearly practiced and figured out what was going to work.
For whatever character he is, it works because, like I said, he captures kind of the very even-tempered, soft-spoken Mr. Rogers, the essence of Mr. Rogers and what he was about and how he made other people feel good, and Tom Hanks captures that. Yeah. And it's okay because, as I said, this is a fictional tale about Mr. Rogers. So if he's doing something else, that's fine. And the cool thing about this being more of a fictional story of Mr. Rogers, they go into areas that people are afraid to do with Mr. Rogers because, everybody wants to call Mr. Rogers a saint, even though he didn't want to be called that. The movie's not afraid to actually make Mr. Rogers just even a little bit of a weirdo. Because it's kind of weird because Mr. Rogers, people be talking to him, he'll just take cameras out and just start snapping people. People are like, what the f are you doing, man? And he adopts people as projects. It's in a way, it's almost like Batman. He's doing a good thing and he's very noble, but he might be a little crazy too.
Well, you say that, but he makes everybody feel good. Yeah, and he genuinely cares. So after a while, you're like, well, if all he's going to do is take pictures, I'm sure he's got a good reason for it.
Yeah, unless he's going home and jacking off that shit.
Well, even then.
Even then, he's being nice about it. Hi, neighbor. But
at least he didn't let me know.
Because, that's what he did, man. Mr. Rogers I'm glad that he used
he danced to the beat of his own drum.
He used his powers for good. Because Mr. Rogers could have everybody on this planet because he seduces people, but he seduces people with kindness. If they're like, people will be talking to Mr. Rogers and they'll be looking at him and they'll be thinking, how the did you get in my house? You know what I mean? Like, he just works his way into people's homes like steadily.
Yeah.
And there are even moments where in the movie. Now I'm just talking about the movie. I don't know how Mr. Rogers.
No. I think in the movie, even when Lloyd's wife is like, "Yeah, I was talking to Fred yesterday." He's like, "Wait, how are you and Mr. Rogers talking?"
Yeah. He's like, how do you get our number, our home number? I didn't give him that shit.
He's in bed with his wife.
Mr. Rogers he's stalking people, man. It's kind of creepy in a way, the way they do it. I like the way the movie kind of put that out there. There's even moments where Mr. Rogers looks like he's even playing power moves. There are moments where he's looking at somebody. Now, he's doing it kindly, but there are moments that he's looking at somebody like, you know what, you really don't know who you with right now.
Well, there's you, Fred, and then there's the character you play, Mr. Rogers.
See,
crazy. Yeah, he did that look like you think I'm fucking stupid.
Yeah, right there, as nice as this man is, he's thinking, should I snap this motherfucker's neck right now?
How am I gonna play this? How am I gonna play this one?
Should I really show him the real Mr. Rogers right now? But watch this shit. Like, he actually gets in his face after a moment. Mr. Rogers can actually be kind of intimidating.
Said it was a play at the plate.
I'm here to interview you, Mr. Rogers.
Well, that is what we're doing, isn't it?
What did he say? What, a plate?
He came in and told him, like, he comes in with a black eye and a Band-Aid on his nose. He got punched at a wedding. It's a long story why, but he told him, like, yeah, I was playing softball, got hit by, one of the balls there.
Oh, so he said you was too close to the plate. Yeah, the plate that somebody threw in my face.
Mr. Rogers suddenly pivoted that question.
Yeah. What's up with that? Because you ain't no hero.
And Mr. Rogers looking at him like, do you really want to go here, Lord?
Yeah, that's that Kevin Spacey House of Cards look.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I can take care of the other eye for you.
And always let Lloyd know that he pulled some gangster shit. He's nice, but they made it seem like there was a sinister side to Mr. Rogers because he let him know, like, Lloyd, nah, I ain't gonna do it, but I could fuck your wife if I wanted to.
Is this Andrea?
Yes.
This is Fred Rogers. Oh, no, Andrea, while I have you, I just want to thank you so much for...
No, babe, I'm going to talk to you.
Don't hand that phone off.
Did I say I want to talk to Lloyd? I called you. He let Lloyd know I can fuck your wife at any moment. You better be glad I'm a nice guy.
Fuck your wife at any moment.
At any moment, Lloyd. Do you understand me, Lloyd?
Are we clear?
Right now. Are we clear?
It was kind of cool that they were able to embrace just a little bit, like a very odd and weird side to Mr. Rogers. There were moments that they would let you know, like, even for Mr. Rogers, he was so kind that sometimes this is not really normal behavior,
Well, even he would, admit every so often, like, hey, I struggle.
Yeah.
Life for my kids wasn't easy because I do this. I get it.
Yeah, you see at times he takes his frustration out on things. They weren't afraid to show you a side of Mr. Rogers that outside of the narrative that they want to sell about him.
Honestly, I feel like this movie is a really good compliment to the documentary.
Yeah.
Like, if you've seen the documentary, it's kind of like I left going, this is fine, but I want a little bit more, and I felt like this gave it to me.
So for me, I would tell you right now, this is not top the documentary because this is an actor playing Mr. Rogers. The documentary is Mr. Rogers, but with this, this movie is really about. It's about Lloyd, but it's also about how this man really does change people's lives when he's able to get close to them.
It's about what it's like to have somebody in your life who just will listen or care.
Yeah.
It makes you long for that. It makes you. It's what the documentary did, where it makes you long for the days of watching Mr. Rogers or knowing that there was somebody out there like that.
Yeah. Oh, what it does is it makes you, like the documentary does, when you watch this, it makes you want to be a better person.
Yes.
Just as an aside right here, we're talking, because all of this is about how Tom Hanks is really capturing that and doing that well and delivering that kind of message too. He's not this is just a quick trivia thing right here. He's not the first one in his family to play Tom Hanks, by the way.
To play Tom Hanks.
I mean, I'm sorry, to play Mr. Rogers. He's not the first Hanks in the family to
Oh.
play Mr. Rogers.
Wait, his
Colin play
son
him?
do? Did Colin?
Colin Hanks played Mr. Rogers. There was an episode of Drunk History.
Oh.
They talked about Mr. Rogers' beautiful life, and they had this dude on there who was fucked up. You know, he was drunk, and he was talking about Mr. Rogers, and to play Mr. Rogers was Colin Hanks.
Fred McFeely Rogers.
exactly like
He
his
watches
dad.
children's TV for the first time. Nonsense is happening. He's like, well, this is just garbage. Hot garbage. What are we doing?
I don't know. I kind of like some of that.
I've never seen that episode, but I do want to
never
watch
either,
it.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Chet Hanks to be Wigger Rogers.
I know, right? I was gonna say, yeah. You know, I was gonna say, don't forget about Chet. Don't forget about Chet.
Yeah, Chet got to play Wigger Rogers now. Yo, what's up to my hood? Welcome to my hood. What's up, neighbor? Yo, what's up? Matthew Rhys does I think he does a great job at playing Lloyd Vogel because he plays it very dark and very sullen. I mean, there's something going on with him. He's very troubled, but not once is he really unlikable.
No, not at all. Even when he's doing, I guess, the wrong thing or acting out, you totally see where he's coming from.
Exactly.
He was like, hey man, I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing in that position.
Yeah. You know, you see him in the movie. You see him being a good husband. You see him being a good father. And when you watch him in the film, when you see him doing all these good things, the film also does a good job of giving you hints of what's going on with him, but also letting us see what Mr. Rogers sees in this character, which makes him a little easier to accept. Because, I mean, he does lash out, but then you see him in sweet moments where he is being very nice to his family and he's trying to do his best, and it's just something he has a bitterness and an anger inside of him that Mr. Rogers is actually trying to draw out of him because he does see that this is a good man. Which is, again, getting to that message of, let's try to just change people's lives for the better instead of always trying to get them at face value and not liking them at the beginning.
Right. Instead of going like, well, that guy's an asshole, so I've written that down, and now he can never be anything different to me.
Chris Cooper plays his father in here, and I won't say too much about that, but Chris Cooper is great in the film because
I love Chris Cooper and everything.
And he comes in and charms the audience, and everybody know he's fucked up.
Yeah.
Everybody know he's an asshole, but they make us sympathetic towards him because he charms the audience. Even though we still know that there's something not right with this guy.
I tell you, that's just one of my frustrations. Not so much with the film, but just within the story that, because the dad is old and everybody's like, he's just a wild old man. But for the son, it's like, you don't know the shit I've been through.
No,
with
they
him.
really, and I was like you. I was like, man, listen, this guy ain't acting crazy towards his father for no reason. And plus, he comes in acting like a goddamn a Las Vegas lounge singer and shit. It's like, all right, this guy's cheesy anyway. I already guessed what he was doing just by looking at the way he was coming in and trying to charm the whole room. That this might not work for everybody because really, Mr. Rogers is almost a fantasy character. The way he comes in and changes these people's lives. This might as well be like Mary Poppins, man. It's like a real life Mary Poppins.
That Mary Poppins movie.
Yeah, he's
Walt Disney.
Yeah, that's right. He sure did.
Mr. Banks.
He's almost like a real life Mary Poppins, man. He just comes in and changes people's life. He's almost like the magical, mystical Negro, except he's white.
Yeah.
He comes in and just magically changes people's lives, and it might be too magical for some people, especially for those people who go in and they want to see an actual Mr. Rogers biopic. It might throw them off that is not only not about him, he's a supporting character in what they thought was his own movie, but also he's somewhat of a magical fairy in this too. Knowing that this is fictional, I liked it very much. That did not bother me, and I'm really enjoying the work of this director, man. This director has been somebody who, as far as I'm concerned, I know that she's done 3 movies so far, and I'm sure I've enjoyed them all. I'm talking about Mariel Heller, but I really did enjoy her last movie, which was Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
I love this movie. That's one of my favorite movies from last year. This director's putting out some great work, and I enjoyed this as much as I did the last one. At this point, I mean, biopics are going to come out, and they're going to follow the formula because, that's never going to change. But I would like to see more just say, you know what, let's just make up something that's kind of inspired by that story. But hey, you know what? I really did enjoy the creativity behind this. It's a simple movie that takes really cool, creative steps to tell its story. And that includes the art direction, as we said, with the telling the story like a children's show format, right down to just how inspired it was to not just tell a run-of-the-mill biopic about Mr. Rogers. You can see that already with the movie that just came out, the documentary. I'm giving it a full price.
I was worried about you because you was talking about how sleepy you were in it, and I was like, oh no, come on, man. This is, to me, this is one of my favorite movies of this year.
Yeah, same here.
And just besides how good it makes you feel and how touching it is at times, it's just so well put together. Yep. And creative, and the way it's able to get meta without that being a thing. And one complaint I saw was saying like, well, Lloyd's story isn't that special. I was like, that's what's special about it, because it puts it on that human level the way everybody can relate to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a high full price.
Yeah. Shit, you see these? I mean, just I hope they clone this mother. Man,
I know.
I'd like to rent a Mr. Rogers just for a day.
Or just tell Tom Hanks, look, you got to do this for real.
Yeah.
Bring the glasses, the eyebrows, and the puppets, and
we'll give you an Oscar every year. You just got to do this in real life.
Shit, I'll even take Colin. Yeah, you busy? Give me your son. Give me your boy. I'll use him, man.
You can take Chet.
Yeah, you got Chet. Please take Chet.
Yo, I'm here. What's your problem? No, that's all right, man.
I'm here. What's your problem, homie?
You need me to beat somebody up? Nah, man. This
Beautiful day in the hood, son.
In the Pacific Palisades, brother. That's the hood up there. We live hard, rough. Only one bullet.